Evening, guys. Welcome to Blended TV. Tonight on Blended TV, we've got Brad Ferguson. Brad, why don't you let everyone know, we went to university together, so we went to St. X together. After X, you went forward and moved to Toronto and became a chiropractor. So fill us in on your credentials.
Okay, so went to St. X with Dave, both graduated in 2008. Then went on to chiropractic college, Canadian Memorial Chiropractic College in Toronto. At the end of that, I did an extra 2 years in a Sports Sciences Residency. So that took me all the way to 2014. In the midst of that, I also got my strength conditioning specialty as well. Then moved back here to Nova Scotia, and now I practice in Elmsdale as a part of like a multidisciplinary team there. Stay pretty active in the sports community as well as interprofessional type seminars that I may run. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
And you're one of very few individuals in the Maritimes that has their fellowship.
Yeah, that's right.
So what is that?
So what a fellowship is that if you want to be titled a sports specialist chiropractor, you have to do 2 extra years of education and then write the fellowship exam, pass the fellowship exam. So currently in the Maritimes, there are 4 of us now. So 3 in Nova Scotia, 1 in New Brunswick. And yeah, there's a lot of residents. Dr. Warren Heffert was on here. He's a resident completing the program soon. So
what does this give you from a knowledge perspective over and above, say, like your more general chiropractor?
It's 2 years completely dedicated to sports injuries. So you spend a lot of your time with trainers, sports physicians, orthopedic surgeons. You have teaching placements, research, classes specifically dedicated to sports injuries. So it's really a 2-year all-inclusive kind of upgrade to, like similar to what you'd expect in, say, medicine, a GP in a sports medicine position. It could be comparable to that type of distinction.
So basically, if someone had an injury based off sports or in the gym, and it's something that affects them with their movements, you're the perfect guy to see for that.
I'd like to think so. Yeah, that's what I try to do. Just because I guess you don't do the residency or fellowship doesn't mean you don't have it. You just kind of have to obtain it through your own measures. But I watched your episode with Warren, and I share the same type of belief, which is if someone comes into me to see me and they're active, I want them to stay active. I want to find ways to keep them active. I want to find ways to modify their life to keep them active and gradually get them back to where they want to be. As opposed to kind of saying, no, like you gotta stop.
And Brad told me that. So for all of you chiropractors out there that want to get on Blended TV, the only way you get on Blended TV is if you want to keep them active.
Yeah. Well, it's true. I mean, realistically, anyone that comes to see you that's active is going to want to be active. So It's either you can kind of facilitate that, or you can lie to each other for a month.
And the reality is, did you not find that active people are more likely to complete like the homework that you would give them anyway?
Oh yeah, they're my favorite patients because they're motivated and self-directed. A lot of people that we see that aren't maybe as athletic or into that type of lifestyle, motivating them for change is difficult. Someone that is exercising regularly and wants to stay active, they are like, what can I do? I'll do anything. Yeah, and I appreciate that for sure.
So tonight we've got a great topic. We're going to talk about pain science.
Right.
Earlier this week or last week when we were talking, this is a topic that is kind of thrown around. I mean, I've personally heard it discussed to an extent before, but never ever gotten into any great detail on it. So I'm really interested in this because I think that a lot of people suffer from this, and I think there's a lack of knowledge, general knowledge around it, that limits people from basically getting back to their normal.
Yeah.
So give us some insight on what this pain science is all about and how it would affect your weekend warrior, people that are athletes, people that are coming into the gym and so forth.
Well, I mean, the truth is, if you look in healthcare, especially greater than 10 years ago, medicine, chiropractic, physiotherapy, we see people for pain. But the amount of education we got on what pain is, why people experience pain, what is the physiological process that's going on, was like this. It wasn't something that was taught. It was like someone comes into you, they have this type of pain, let's try to fix it. But trying to understand what pain actually is, and now there is tons of research being done on what is pain and how do you change pain. Because pain, like any sensation, whether it's smell or taste or emotions, people feel differently. There's certain people that can do a lot and not get pain, and certain people seem to get pain all the time. So understanding that science and what goes into modifying pain helps me in my job. It helps me kind of change how someone may or may not do something.
And there are people that have been born that literally don't feel pain, period, right?
Yeah.
Like that exists.
Congenital analgesia, it's actually something that is bad because pain's meant to protect you. But so what happens is people that have congenital analgesia, you know, when we sit for a long period of time and you need to move because you're uncomfortable, they don't feel that. So they get arthritis in their joints really quickly. If they put their hand back on a stove, they will smell the burning flesh before they notice that the hand's there. So these type of individuals have a hard time living past 30, 35 because they can't experience pain. So it gives you an idea how important pain is to us, but how much of a burden it is at the same time. So.
Have you ever met someone like that?
No, it's extremely rare.
Is it?
Yeah, it's extremely rare. Yeah, but I mean, I think you know people that are able to withstand a lot of torture. They don't classify it as pain.
And is that just more of mental toughness? Like I've always just assumed that some people just can mentally take more pain than others, but you're saying that it's more than that. Like
I guess you can quantify or qualify what mental toughness is that pain is a sensation that is literally, it's same as all the little nerves that go to our joints and muscles are continually sending signals to our spinal cord up to our brain, and our brain goes, well, what is that? What does that mean to me? People that are mentally tough are able to just block it. They're just able to suppress that sensation. Similar to that, if we were in the field of battle and we were to lose an arm but we were being chased, it would not bother you for a second. The same reason why hockey players can get a slash to the wrist, they just finish their shift and come off and go, what happened? I have no idea what happened.
I feel like most people can relate to that at some point in their life, like where they were hurt but their adrenaline was pumping so much that it didn't affect them until after the case.
Yeah, exactly. And a lot of people will say, you can say adrenaline, but a lot of it is actually prioritizing sensations. Our brain is bombarded every day by every sensation, sight, smell, how tight our socks are on our feet, and it prioritizes them from 1 to 1,000,000. And people that are in chronic pain, an issue that they have is that they prioritize pain very high. So it's what their brain spends a lot of time attentive to. So, for example, you put on your underwear, socks in the morning, or maybe your tight leggings or tight top for the gym, feels super snug right away. After 5 seconds, you're none the wiser. Why? Because your brain says, yeah, I felt that at first, it's not important. Some people are able to deprioritize pain. Their own genetic makeup or how they've experienced things in life, they're able to put it down lower and just ignore it. Some people see me, they have MRIs that look terrible, they have x-rays that look terrible, and they're in this amount of pain. Because it's just, they're able to suppress that to some extent. Would be like a lay, like I'm really getting basic on that, but.
So let's walk everyone through basically this entire process. So let's use an example of someone that suffers from a lower back injury.
Right.
So it's muscular. They have no disc issue, but they definitely have like some sort of issue with regards to like muscular tightness and stuff where they feel this pain. What's the process of getting them better, and where do some people like relapse based on the fact that they are suffering from this whole concept?
Okay, that one's a little tougher, back pain. I think a great example is like a chronic tendon injury, which is
chronic tendon.
Yeah, look at the notes, Dave.
Yeah, let's go with this one. Okay.
A chronic tendon injury. So a very common one would be like an Achilles tendinopathy. So the big tendon that attaches to our heel. A lot of people that do jumping activities will say, it'll hurt. It'll hurt a lot. When I warm up, it's not so bad, but it always hurts afterwards. What ends up happening is not only does that tendon change in structure, so the tendon will actually look different if you were to cut it open and put it under a microscope, but the nerves that go to that tendon actually change. So what happens is they become more sensitive. So let's just say if we put 100 units of stress through it back in the day, and the brain would go, nah, that's fine. When you go along the tendinopathy route, you get 100, the brain goes, that's bad. So when you feel that tension, you're like, oh, that's a painful tension. I'm not going to push it any further. When really, the tendon can withstand that force, and you can push further, but your body's telling you no. And that's mostly because of the fact of the nerves changing. You take that tendon through a proper loading protocol. So this is where you need a specialist for this. A proper loading protocol. Some of the training will be painful, but you'll end up on top. And you'll end up being better. And the amount of load or stress that tendon can take over time will be improved. If you would have listened to your body how you thought you would for the whole way through, you'd have a really hard time progressing. So it's counterintuitive. So that's why if you go to a therapist, they always want to know, well, what type of pain is it? And what type of injury is it? Should I, the $1 million question you always get, should I work through pain? Well, the answer is you cannot give a yes or no. It really depends on the type of pain. So when they look at these changes, they'll take people and they'll look at an Achilles tendon under an MRI. They'll take them through a training protocol. At the end, it looks the exact same as it did off the start, yet they're better. So they say, well, what happened? What actually changed? And a lot of it they've shown is the nerves that go to that tendon, their sensitivity has changed. So you just feel better.
And does that happen just over time, or is that something that has to be trained? Like, if someone doesn't do anything about it, they don't see a therapist, they just sit on it. Because I feel like for many people, that is the route they go. They get hurt, they're like, oh, I'm going to wait this out. Spend 2-3 weeks waiting it out. Some people get better, others don't. Does that mean that they healed, or not necessarily, and they've just themselves adapted to that?
Yeah, I wouldn't say they've healed, and that's the tough part, is that you will feel better. Like an Achilles tendon rupture would be a great example. You're going to feel better long before you are better. Like, you can be pain-free because you're just walking around. You're not doing anything. So you'll feel fine. Same as someone that rolls their ankle. They've shown this in tons of research studies. You roll your ankle, you tear the ligament on the outside of your ankle. After about 7 to 10 days, you're going to feel fine. The muscles have changed in their responsiveness. The muscles have actually changed in their strength. Your ankle range of motion has changed, but you don't perceive that. Those are like, very quick changes that can happen, very microscopic type things, but they increase your likelihood of injury. So if someone sits around after an injury, they're going to feel better in no time. They're going to feel fine. What happens is they're going to go back and they're going to be in this repetitive re-injury, lack of tolerance. They're going to get to a certain point and oh geez, every time I get to this, I roll my ankle. Or every time I get to, I'm fine in the gym, but then I go and play basketball and my Achilles always flares up. And what they'll usually end up doing is saying, well, I guess I'm just not going to play basketball again. But the truth is, you can get back to doing that. It's just you have to do it in the stepwise progression.
It's interesting because, a lot of people will go through this same process, and then what I always make the assumption of is that they have a compensation injury, right, where they've hurt themselves, they start feeling better, they go back to full training, they hurt something that's not the same spot. Like, so instead of hurting their Achilles again, their knee starts to hurt.
Yep.
And I always think, and how I usually explain it, maybe I'm right or wrong, I'm not sure you'll be able to tell us, but I would say that's usually based on the fact that maybe your Achilles didn't completely heal, and because of it you were compensating, and now you've got a knee injury.
Yeah, that's I can't say 100% correct, but that is as correct as you can possibly get, because your body's amazing. Your body, not yours. The human body is amazing.
Come on!
The human body is amazing in that it can adapt. It can change how it does things to function. All your body cares about when it goes to the gym is like, I need to do this. So your body's going to find a way, right? What will end up happening is the route that it takes is always going to be the path of least resistance. And then what will end up happening is something's going to break, potentially. Something's going to break, and usually it's not the injured area because your body's smart enough to lay off on that one. You lay off the Achilles, you start overdoing your quads, and you're right, you get a patellar tendinopathy. And then, now you got two things. Sometimes I tell patients all the time, how far along this cascade do I got you? It's like, oh man, sometimes I'm like number 5, I'm like, oh my God, you rolled your ankle, and then you got the glute thing, and then you got the opposite SI thing, and I'm like, you have no idea how deep we are into this. It's a mess to try to sometimes clean that up. And I told you before we got on here is the solutions are often simple, but hard because of the amount of commitment you got to do. Yeah.
So let's go into that part next.
Yeah.
So someone goes through this process, they hurt themselves. In an ideal scenario, what's the process of getting better to ensure that they prevent themselves from either hurting themselves in a different fashion or re-injuring that same body part?
I love using the example of a professional athlete. If you look at any professional athlete, pay attention on the ticker for how much time they have off. So, Evgeny Malkin tears an ACL. He's out for 9 months, maybe more. So if I see someone with a torn ACL, they want to get back in 3 months or 4 months. Malkin's got his entire staff. It's his full-time job all day, every day, to be dedicated to this ACL complete body rehab. And he may take 10 months. And you, on the other hand, don't have those resources, financial resources as well, or time, and you want to do it in 5, it's about adjusting expectations. If you've had a significant injury, or even a small injury, I like thinking that you want to get the body kind of rebalanced, in line, everything's kind of good, and then you go. And that is usually months of being symptom-free in the gym, of kind of restoring that. And people often don't have the patience for that, because what they think is, I feel pretty good and I can almost do what I used to do. And then what happens is 6 months later, something happens. And you see this kind of recurring wheel go round and round, because it's really difficult to go through stages of rehab where you feel great and you think you can do something, but you just got to take a little bit of time to really get everything back up and running. I've had my own kind of chronic injuries, and I like to think of myself as a good patient, because I kind of know what I'm feeling, and it took me like a long time to recover from a shoulder injury I sustained from golf.
Yeah. I find it's interesting because, you're basically explaining the scenario of like 90% of the people in blended athletics. Yeah. They come back from an injury and they try to jump right back into that weight. Yeah. So every person would be different, but at what point do you know to kind of pick up that intensity, start increasing weight? Like, how do you work yourself through this path?
It really depends on the injury, but a lot of it requires testing people, and often testing them as unilaterally as possible. So if you take someone that has, an ACL tear, if they can't 3-legged jump, one-legged times 3, just so people know what I mean by that. If they can't do that within 80 to 90% on both sides, you're gonna have a problem. If they can't, cut the same on the one single leg back and forth as the other one, they probably gonna have trouble. They're gonna start compensating. If they aren't coached through their squat, if they aren't coached through lunges, if they aren't coached through any type of agility work, they may not be able to pick up on these types of things. In Canada, it's hard to get that type of support.
Yeah.
It's often expensive. It's often hard to find people that are qualified to do that. So you just kind of do your best guess at yourself, kind of self-diagnosing, I think I'm good to go.
Yeah.
It's just most athletes or athletic people are in denial. They think that, it's not going to happen to me, right? I see all these other people injured, but it's not going to happen to me. So it's really hard, if they haven't experienced it before, to get the belief that,
So do you have a suggestion for all of these individuals that are watching that don't have these resources and the time to, is there a set path that you'd go down in order to kind of get back? Would you make sure that you're pain free and then spend an additional 2 weeks working on movement patterns at light weight, ensuring that you stay pain free? Is it 1 month? Is it 2 months? Or is it impossible to even give that sort of a path?
Perfect scenario is a therapist, whether it's a chiro or a physio, that's the main people be in that realm, working in partnership with a strength conditioning specialist type realm. The chiropractor or physio does some basic testing and coaching, and then sends recommendations to somebody like yourself. That is how I know it works the best within Nova Scotia and how I do it right now, because it requires that level of amount of attention and kind of structure, and often it makes it at least exciting enough to the person. As I told you kind of before we went on air, is Most chronic injuries of athletic individuals, my hands-on treatment, acupuncture, mobilizations, manipulations, Graston, whatever you want to call it, is a very small piece of a rehabilitation profile.
You said 10%.
I said probably 10%, yeah. Ideally, they come into me, I help clear everything out and create like the best person to exercise.
Yeah.
If you want a sustainable adaptation of a human being, it doesn't happen with passive treatment. It's impossible. Like, it'd be like going to the gym once and expecting to be strong for a month. It just doesn't work that way. So what you do is you provide Dave with the best template of an athlete or someone to do rehab, and then go and say, hey Dave, you know, I find that they're good for, now that I find that the strength is going well and this, that, and the other, they're ready to hit the plyometrics now. These are some of the recommendations I have. I am open to your suggestions to help improve this. Boom, done. So also, I mean, in terms of prevention, is creating like a well-rounded athletic individual has some level of variety to their training, and I find is probably like the best way to prevent this type of thing. Like screening, self-screening. Like, I like teaching patients how to like screen themselves for range of motion deficits, for motor control deficits that they can kind of work on.
So we spent all this time talking about our athletes, the people that are active. Mm-hmm. What about inactive people? Because many of them, and this, I mean, we're running out of time here, but we'll touch on this pretty quickly. I mean, so many people suffer from chronic pain. I almost on a daily basis have someone walk in, they're like, I want to get back into fitness. However, I have lower back pain, neck pain, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I've been suffering for this for years. Mm-hmm. What can you do with someone that, whether they want to get fit or they're just suffering from like chronic pain? Is this something that you can work with them as well?
They are, like I said, I like the athletic population. I think I might love the chronic pain population just because I find, especially in my field, it's poorly treated, chronic pain. And people that want to get back to exercise often think they can't. It's like people with diabetes are harking at, I don't want to exercise, something bad might happen. Same with people that have chronic pain. Is really, education is huge, and that's where the pain science aspect comes in, is understanding why you're in pain, what that pain means, hurt versus harm, and then the best way to sum it up, it's called graded exposure in the kind of the pain science world. It is sub-threshold training, so something that may kind of aggravate them a little bit, but not that much that it writes them off. Once you start playing with that threshold, whether it's 10 minutes on a treadmill or light resistance training, that threshold goes up and up and up and up and up. Not linear, there may be bumps along the way. But people that are in pain, that start doing activities that don't bother them that much, all of a sudden their sphere of activities that they can do become bigger, and their can't do list becomes smaller. So someone that couldn't walk 10 minutes can now hike 15 minutes. And once they start realizing that this sphere of activity can be changed, motivation just skyrockets. But it takes, some time, 2, 3, 4 weeks. But it's a very satisfying thing to see in practice because they think they can't because they have pain. And just because you have pain doesn't mean you can't. It actually changes you. And that's like the pain sciences. Exercise changes your actual receptors that control what you experience. And as long as it's controlled exercise, your pain-free activities go up. And it's awesome. So, very few chronic pain patients do I have that would not benefit from exercise. And they are so far down that it's like really hard to get them back. But, 99% are totally, like, I wouldn't say curable, but can improve from it big time.
I think that's the perfect spot to end this episode. Education is key. That's the whole purpose of BlendedTV in the first place. And we have so many resources for education in Nova Scotia that I think our population are unaware of. Mm-hmm. And you're a great example. So, Brad, thanks so much for coming on the show tonight. Guys, we're going to throw up Brad's contact information into this episode right after this. Feel free to touch base with him. If you have any questions and you can't get a hold of him, come to me. I can get a hold of him. But thanks for tuning in tonight. And Brad, thank you for coming out to Blended.
Thanks, Dave.